It started with a closed door. Not just any door. This was the council chamber of the unified galactic core, the place where laws were written for hundreds of species, where treaties decided the fate of planets, and where humans were no longer welcome. Commander Dax stood just outside that door, his jaw clenched so tight he could hear his own teeth grind. The cold blue light above the chamber flashed red, a signal that the session had begun. Without Earth. Without him. Without a single damn human voice present. 3 years ago, humans were part of the core. Not well liked, but tolerated. They called Earth a developing world, and humans volatile primitives. Yet humanity had earned its seat. Through trade, through exploration, through spilling blood beside alien allies in wars they didn't even start. And still, they were pushed out like trash. It was the Juraxians who first moved to expel Earth. Unfit, they claimed. Too emotional, too violent, too unpredictable. Hypocrisy at its finest, coming from a race that harvested slave worlds and called it economic balance. The motion passed with just 2 votes against. No trial, no defense. Just a cold, calculated purge. Dax had sat in that chamber the day it happened. He remembered the way they refused to even look at him, how his translator implant picked up the murmurs. Finally, less noise. He'd stood, said nothing, just walked out. But as he passed that long corridor of alien stone, he made a promise to himself. If the galaxy didn't want to listen to humans anymore, he'd make damn sure it didn't have a choice. Back on Earth, the government collapsed. Funding dried up, alliances shattered, riots tore through major cities, colonies lost contact. A slow rot of despair set in like rust on a forgotten blade. But not everyone folded. Dax found others like him. Outcasts, rogue soldiers, smugglers, AI researchers with too many neural scars and not enough ethics. He gathered them in silence. No press, no speeches, just a cause. Revenge? Number. Not exactly. This wasn't about punishment. It was about presence. You don't erase humans and think we'll stay quiet, he told them. We're the only species that can turn pain into fuel. And so they built it. Deep in a broken asteroid belt that once held a mining prison, they carved out a place they called the Corylus Bastion. A fortress with no rules, no supervision, and no patience for anything soft. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but a new power was forming in its shadow. Human only. Human-led. Human-made. By the time the core noticed, it was too late. Pirate attacks began near Juraxian borders. Human pirates. Not for loot, but for hostages, politicians, scientists, council assistants. One by one they vanished. Systems went dark. Entire relay hubs destroyed. Messages scrambled by Earth-made viruses that weren't even supposed to exist anymore. And the message they left behind in every ruined outpost was the same. You shut us out. Now you'll hear us roar. Dax watched the chaos unfold from the command deck of the Ragnarok, a heavily modified dreadnought older than most empires. His crew was a mess. War criminals, betrayed captains, exosuit junkies, even a few enhanced veterans who shouldn't have survived their last wars. All human, all broken in the right kind of way. Council's panicking, his tactician muttered, pointing at a scrambled broadcast. Good. Let them panic. Dax leaned forward, eyes locked on a live feed of the council chamber. Alien diplomats screamed over each other. The galaxy's most advanced species, reduced to fear and finger-pointing. He tapped his console and opened a channel. A broadcast, not private, not hidden. He sent it to every system in the galaxy. This is Commander Dax of Earth, he began, voice steady, sharp as a blade. You thought we were done. You thought we'd beg our way back in. But we don't beg. We take. You wanted silence from humanity. But what you'll get, he paused, leaned in, is the loudest war your stars have ever seen. The signal cut. Silence followed. and then the galaxy began to listen. The storm didn't wait. 23 minutes after Dax's message hit the stars, the core retaliated. Not with weapons, yet, but with panic. Emergency sessions were held in every major sector. Trade with human colonies was suspended indefinitely. The Juraxians closed 6 key jump gates overnight, choking off supply lines to any system known to host human populations. Earth was declared a Class 7 hostile world, just 1 level below total quarantine. The message was clear: contain and erase. But Earth wasn't waiting to be erased anymore. Inside the Ragnarok, Dax stood over a large holotable displaying live updates. Planets flickered with warnings. Red dots marked blockades. Blue showed Allied sympathizers, though few dared act openly. Yellow? That was new. Flickering pulses from colonies once considered lost, now blinking back to life. One of his lieutenants, Merrick, stepped into the room. Scarred, wild-eyed, the man walked like someone who'd never adjusted to peace. Juraxian supply ships hit on the outer rim. 2 destroyed. Survivors taken. Dax didn't flinch. Any signs of response? They scrambled patrol fleets, but they're spread thin. Most systems assumed we were dead. They weren't ready for this. Good. It was never about war in the traditional sense. That would be suicide. The core controlled fleets 10 times the size of Earth's old defense navy. But war wasn't always fought with numbers. Dax was counting on something far older, something purer. Fear. And fear was spreading fast. The humans they cast out were evolving. No longer bound by intergalactic law, no longer shackled by diplomacy or reputation, they became something raw, unfiltered. Weapons that learned how to think, build, strike. There was no telling how many rogue units now answered to Dax, and worse, how many operated on their own under his name. They called it the Roar Protocol. One whisper, one signal, and any human colony, ship, or expatriate knew what to do. Disrupt, damage, and disappear. You know what they're calling us now? Merrick asked, almost amused. Dax raised an eyebrow. The Ghost Surge, because we hit like spirits. No trace, no warning. Dax smirked slightly, but the weight never left his face. Let them call us ghosts. I want them scared of their own shadows. He turned toward the window of the command deck. Outside, the black void was dotted with stars and the distant shimmer of a dying moon. That moon had once been a Juraxian mining site. Now it was reduced to floating debris. They're still underestimating us, Merrick said, voice low. Dax nodded. They think this is a tantrum. But they don't understand humanity doesn't tantrum. We burn. Dax knew what had to come next. Chaos was good, but it needed focus now. Too many scattered raids, too much uncoordinated vengeance. They needed to hit something sacred, something loud, and nothing was louder than the Council Beacon Station. Located in the neutral Dravari system, the beacon was a monument, both literal and symbolic. The oldest communications relay in the galaxy. Built by the founding 5 species, it stood over 1,000 meters tall, floating in a geosynchronous orbit, shining like a lighthouse for ships across 5 quadrants. It transmitted everything: emergency codes, navigation data, diplomatic broadcasts. It also carried the Council's voice to the stars. Dax turned to his tech officer. How long to hijack the beacon? She hesitated. Security is tight. We'd need to reach the inner core before initiating override. The firewall is native to the Koroks. Their encryption's practically organic. Can you do it? With time? Dax's voice was hard. You've got 40 hours. She nodded once and left. Merrick leaned in. You're really gonna do it? Dax's eyes darkened. They kicked us out like animals. Now we speak through their holy mouthpiece. 37 hours later, the Ragnarok and 4 smaller frigates emerged from a dark jump corridor near Dravari. The beacon station floated before them, gleaming gold and silver, guarded by 2 cruisers and a rotating shield drone matrix. A defensive structure, not a military base, but well fortified nonetheless. Inside, Council technicians scrambled. Alarm signals pinged across the station as the Ragnarok's ID tags were identified. The name Dax carried with it the weight of a curse now. They issued a warning across all civilian bands. Attention, unidentified human fleet. This is protected Council territory. Turn back or face immediate enforcement. Dax replied with silence. Instead, he launched the first wave. Stealth pods loaded with infiltration units, modified exosuits built for vacuum combat. They drifted across the void, invisible to all but the most advanced scanners. 30 seconds later, the station's outer shield flickered, confused by an unexpected data surge. Dax watched calmly as the feed glitched. "Infiltrators are in," his tech officer whispered. Inside the beacon, chaos reigned. Emergency lockdowns kicked in, but the infiltration team, ex-special ops, outlaws, exiled Navy officers, cut through bulkheads like paper. Rooms were cleared with brutal efficiency. One engineer tried to resist and was tased into unconsciousness. They weren't here to kill, not yet, just take control. 42 minutes later, Dax received the signal. The beacon was his. He stepped into the signal chamber via remote feed, speaking through a clean channel now linked to every corner of the galaxy. Billions would hear what he had to say. This time, no council filters, no translators, just the raw human voice. His voice. This is not a negotiation. This is not a plea. You exiled humanity. You erased us from your records, your treaties, your laws. You told your people we were violent, reckless, dangerous. He paused, his breath slow. You were right. The transmission shook the stars. You created the version of us you feared, and now that version stands in your temple. Your holy beacon is ours now. We will speak when we choose. You don't get to silence us anymore. He leaned in toward the feed, voice hard as stone. There will be no peace until Earth is back at the table. No peace until every human colony, every outpost, every family exiled by your laws is restored. You denied us a voice. A grin cut across his face, sharp, feral. So now we scream. Then the screen went dark. All across the galaxy, panic erupted. News channels called it terrorism. Military officials denied they had underestimated the threat, while scrambling fleets across 6 systems. Protests broke out on alien worlds. Some demanded action against humans. Others began to question the Council's version of events. Why were humans really expelled? Why is their voice so terrifying to the core? Inside a Juraxian command bunker, High Marshal Tovrek slammed his claws onto a table, shattering it. "Enough games," he growled. "Initiate full strike, erase the station, and prepare an invasion of Earth." But by the time their ships reached the beacon, it was empty. Dax and his crew had vanished. Only one thing remained, a simple phrase, scrawled into the walls of the signal room with human blood. "You will hear us." Back on Earth, something strange was happening. Where once there had been hopeless silence, now colonies buzzed with power again. Relays lit up. Trade resumed, not with the core, but between Earthborn systems. Smugglers turned into diplomats, pirates into protectors. Humanity had become a nation without borders, a people bound not by law or planet, but by exile itself. Cast out together, they rose together. And Dax, he wasn't a politician, not a king. He refused all titles. But every human in the galaxy now knew his name. And so did their enemies. The next strike didn't come from a fleet. It came from within. 4 days after the beacon broadcast, Dax's name had reached corners of the galaxy that no diplomat or commander ever could. On planets where humans were hunted like vermin, young men began organizing in alleyway hideouts. On moons where Earth's language had been outlawed, old veterans taught teenagers how to build improvised tech out of scrap and memory. Every exile became a soldier, every insult a weapon. And someone else was listening too. Inside the Juraxian High Council chamber, High Marshal Tovrek paced like a caged predator. The chamber was lined with gold panels etched in the bloodlines of the 5 elite houses. To speak here was sacred, but the Marshal had no patience for reverence anymore. "They're not just hitting our systems," he snarled. "They're influencing them, subverting order, turning colonists into rebels." The other council members shifted uncomfortably. One of them, Elder Rethan of the Triclaw Guild, tried to look calm, but couldn't hide the sweat on his brow. "Perhaps we've underestimated the human mind. It's not just brute strength. It's corruption," Tovrek cut in. "They infect everything they touch, and now they've infected the message." He slammed a clawed hand down, opening a hollow display mid-air. A message played. Encrypted, pirate signal, origin unknown. "You stripped us of our name, but now your citizens wear it as armor." The screen glitched. Then another signal began playing, this time a call from a Juraxian colonist pleading with his leaders to negotiate with the humans. Words like unwinnable, containment failing, and civil unrest appeared. Tovrek's eyes narrowed. They weren't fighting an army. They were fighting an idea. On the Ragnarok, Dax stood over a tactical table while his tech officer patched into the chatter from intercepted council systems. Each hour brought new intel. Each hour, more proof that fear was evolving into cracks, and cracks were how you break empires. Marek entered, dropping a datapad onto the table. Another defector. Council pilot, 20 years in. He handed over jumpgate codes. Dax raised an eyebrow. "Just like that?" "He watched our beacon message while on patrol, said he was tired of serving liars. He wants in." Dax didn't celebrate, didn't smile, just gave a slow nod. "Where is he now?" "Heading to Bastion for processing. If he's clean, he'll be on the next op." Dax picked up the pad and looked at the codes. "This one unlocks the Azarin corridor," Marek added. "It leads straight to the Kurok's combank." Now that was interesting. The Kuroks were silent manipulators. They didn't show force. They controlled information. Half the Council's propaganda originated from there. If humanity could hijack their combank, they wouldn't just be disrupting messages, they'd be rewriting them. It was a bold move, dangerous, the kind of move that couldn't be walked back. But then again, Dax had already set the galaxy on fire. "Why stop now?" "Prep the insertion," he said. The mission to the Kurok's combank required more than just brute force. Dax handpicked a small strike team. No more than 6, including himself. It had to be surgical. One mistake, and they'd be vaporized by automated security. As their transport cut across unregulated space, Dax sat in silence, staring out the viewport. Stars flicked past like dying sparks. Across from him sat a man named Harvin, a former linguist turned insurgent, with a mind sharp enough to decode alien thought patterns in real time. Harvin leaned forward. "Funny, isn't it?" he said. "How we were begging for scraps just a few years ago, trying to play by their rules." Dax didn't respond. Harvin continued. "Now we're rewriting the rules with blood, and they still don't know how to stop us." Dax finally looked up. They were never scared of our weapons. They were scared of our will, our refusal to fold. You can beat someone with guns, but not with memory, not with fire passed from father to son. Harvin nodded slowly. "So we teach them that fire burns everyone." The insertion point was quiet. Too quiet. The Kurok's satellite was hidden behind the magnetic field of a dead planet, nearly invisible to long-range scans. The station was sleek, white, and circular like a mechanical eye constantly watching. Their tech was more organic than synthetic, pulsing softly with embedded light, living circuits. The team approached through a decoy mining ship, broadcasting harmless mineral scans. As expected, the station ignored them. To the Kuroks, physical threats were beneath consideration. Their arrogance made them vulnerable. They docked, entered silently. Dax led the way, pulse rifle slung across his back. Every step echoed in the unnatural quiet. The air was filtered, warm, sterile, inhuman. Inside the core chamber, Harvin jacked into the interface. The Kurok's language wasn't just symbols, it was emotionally coded. Their systems read intent, not just logic. Harvin's body shook slightly as he interfaced. "Give me a minute," he grunted, sweat pouring down his face. "Their system's trying to feel me out. It's like it's asking me if I believe what I'm saying." Dax stepped closer. "Then believe it." 10 seconds passed. Harvin's eyes snapped open. "I'm in." He sent the signal. Across 5 quadrants, the Corps' news channels flickered. The headlines changed mid-broadcast. "Human insurgents crush civilian hubs" was replaced with "Council orders starvation blockade against human refugees." "Human pirates steal vital supplies" became "Survivors of Earth's colonies demand basic rights." Every twisted lie the Council had spread was reversed, replaced with truth. Or better yet, human truth, the kind that hurt. In moments, the Kurok's command staff realized the breach, but by the time they triggered their internal purge, the message had already spread beyond containment. The stars themselves seemed to hum with it. A revolution not of bullets, but of story. Back on Ragnarok, Dax listened to the aftermath unfold. Alien worlds, once loyal to the Council, were now questioning everything. Protests in the Darvon district, labor strikes in the Yulin colonies. Even core-aligned species like the Tellurians began leaking support toward the human cause. It was happening faster than he expected. He looked at Merrick, who watched the feeds like a soldier watching the battlefield burn. "We're past the point of no return," Merrick said quietly. "You realize that, right?" Dax nodded. "They'll come for Earth." "They have to," Merrick agreed. "It's the symbol, the root. If they can't kill the world, they'll never kill the message." Dax turned away from the screen. "Let them come." Far beneath the surface of Earth, deep inside the forgotten bunkers of what used to be the United Defense Command, human engineers were working around the clock. They weren't building cities. They weren't growing crops. They were building a fleet. Old scrapyards became weapons foundries. Civilian cruisers were converted into war-hardened battleships. AI tech banned decades ago was revived, reprogrammed, and let loose under human control. And Dax? He was already planning the final move. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about fear. It was about legacy. He didn't just want the Council to hear humanity. He wanted them to never forget what happens when you cast a species into the dark and expect it to die quietly. Earth had been quiet for too long. To the galaxy, it looked like a ghost world. After the exile, it had slipped from trade maps. Council patrols avoided it like a cursed graveyard. They assumed Earth was finished. Cut off, starved, broken by the loss of status and support. But what they didn't see was the silence wasn't death. It was preparation. Dax stood at the edge of the underground launch hangar, watching the final cruiser get powered up. Black steel, sharp angles, energy lines pulsing red. This wasn't a defensive fleet. This was a weaponized resurrection. The engineers moved like soldiers. No idle talk, no wasted steps. Every man and woman here had lost something to the Council. Homes, families, futures. They weren't here for medals or politics. They were here for retribution. Merrick walked up beside him, dressed in his combat armor. It looked worn and patched, but functional. Reliable. Like Merrick himself. "She's ready," he said, nodding at the cruiser. Dax didn't answer right away. He kept his eyes on the red glow at the ship's underbelly. The engines hummed low, like a beast waking from a long slumber. "What do you call it?" Merrick asked. Dax finally spoke, voice low and cold. "Reckoning." Merrick gave a short laugh. Fitting. The council wasn't sitting idle. Not anymore. High Marshal Tovrek had ordered a full blockade of Sector 9, the last major corridor leading toward Earth. Dozens of cruisers, thousands of fighters, surveillance drones by the hundreds. The blockade wasn't just military. It was the message. Earth would remain cut off, choked, grounded. But Tovrek had made one mistake. He thought Dax would try to go around it. The fleet launched at 0300 Earth Standard Time. No fanfare, no goodbye speeches. Just steel rising from the ground, roaring up through the ash-colored sky and punching into orbit. Ragnarok led the charge, followed by Reckoning, Black Flame, and a dozen other retooled dreadnoughts. From above, Earth finally looked like it was waking up. Dax stood on the bridge of Ragnarok, hands clasped behind his back, his eyes locked on the holomap showing the Sector 9 blockade in all its arrogant glory. Merrick stepped forward. "Council knows we're coming. They've got an entire command fleet parked in the corridor." "Good," Dax said. "You planning to go through it?" "Right through the heart." Merrick paused. "That's suicide." Dax turned to him, eyes sharp. "Number, that's a statement." The fleet hit Sector 9 6 hours later. Council ships were lined in a perfect wall, tight formations, standard tactics, predictable. What they didn't expect was for Dax to hit fast and silent. No warnings, no threats, just shock. The first wave came from below. Stealth drones hidden inside meteor fragments, launched days in advance by human sympathizers embedded inside the asteroid field. When the drones detonated, they overloaded local comms, frying half the sensors on the blockade's eastern flank. Before the Council fleet could recalibrate, Dax's ships tore through the gap. It wasn't a clean pass. The enemy fired back hard. Black Flame took 3 direct hits, venting oxygen into space before it could recover. One of the corvettes, Unity's Price, was destroyed instantly, but the line broke. The Council scrambled. Fighters deployed late. Orders lagged. By the time they reformed, Dax's fleet had already passed the midpoint, and then they turned around. Dax wasn't just breaking the blockade, he was destroying it. On open comms, he broadcast a short, cold message. "You built this wall to contain us. Now choke on its rubble." The aftermath of Sector 9 sent shockwaves through the Council. 27 warships lost, hundreds of their elite dead. The blockade didn't just fail, it collapsed into a warning. Humanity was no longer playing defense. Inside the Council's war chamber, Tovrek roared in rage. "How does a race we exiled, stripped, disarmed, how do they fight like this?" No one had an answer. The other Council members looked shaken. For the first time in decades, their dominance felt fragile. Dax wasn't just leading a rogue army, he was reshaping the perception of humanity across the galaxy. Not savage, not primitive, unbreakable. The path to Earth was open now. But Dax didn't return home, not yet. He had one more move in mind, and it wasn't military, it was symbolic. In the center of core space was a structure called the Unity Spire, the Council's greatest monument. A towering obelisk that stretched from the surface of Elar Prime all the way into orbit. It was built as a symbol of cooperation between the first 5 species. Each of them had their emblem engraved in the metal along the spire's spine. But there was no human emblem. Not anymore. Dax planned to change that. Operation Skymark began 3 days later. A small team of Deep Ops soldiers, veterans of Earth's forgotten wars, inserted themselves onto Alar Prime through commercial cargo ships. Smuggled gear, cloaked movement, no violence. They didn't come to destroy the spire, they came to claim it. With only 7 hours before security caught wind, the team scaled the outer scaffolding of the spire, reached the upper levels, and activated a powerful signal drone. Its purpose: broadcast a live image across the galaxy's public comnets. And when the feed went live, the galaxy saw a human flag being burned into the spire's titanium hide. One soldier stood in front of the camera, mask off, face hard. We were erased, forgotten, cast out, but we never stopped being here. We are not asking for inclusion. We are taking our place back. Then they vanished. Security stormed the spire an hour later. Too late. The signal had been mirrored, shared, replayed on 100 systems. The image of the burned-in human emblem, black against steel, became the most downloaded holorecord in galactic history. The message couldn't be stopped. Back aboard Ragnarok, Dax stood watching the spire footage from his quarters. The human mark, raw and jagged, was beautiful in its defiance. Merrick entered without knocking. Word is the Tellurian Enclave just opened communication with Earth. Diplomatic, not military. Dax didn't turn. And? They want to open trade. They're calling the Council unstable. Dax gave a faint smile. This is how it ends. Not with fire, but with doubt. He turned slowly. We were never trying to destroy the Council, Merrick. Just show the galaxy it didn't deserve to lead anymore. Merrick nodded slowly. And when it falls? Dax looked out the window, toward the stars. We build something better, something earned. But he knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Tovrek would never surrender. The old guard wouldn't go quietly. There would be one more battle, and it wouldn't be about systems or stations. It would be for Earth itself. And Dax was ready. Let them come. Let them bring everything they had, because this time the door wouldn't be closed. This time humanity would be waiting. They came without warning. No diplomatic overture, no demand for surrender, no ultimatum. Just an entire Council fleet, more than 600 warships, blotting out Earth's moon like a second nightfall. From the upper atmosphere, the sky looked diseased. Dark streaks of incoming cruisers set the heavens on fire. For every ship humanity had built, the core had brought 10. This wasn't a show of force. It was meant to be a final punishment, a lesson. You don't defy the core and survive. Inside the Ragnarok, Dax stood on the command deck, arms folded across his chest, face illuminated by warning lights and tactical overlays. Earth's defense grid was online. Barely. Most of the weapon platforms were repurposed mining rigs and century-old cannons retooled with guerrilla AI. This wasn't going to be a fair fight. Merrick stood beside him, silent for a moment as the sensor data rolled in. They've committed their full Earth suppression fleet, he muttered. If we lose here, there's no regrouping, no hiding. Dax didn't blink. Then we don't lose. Even if we win, Merrick continued, the damage will be worth it, Dax cut in. We don't win this war by numbers. We win it by showing them what happens when you try to erase people who have nothing left to lose. His voice was quiet, but harder than steel. Merrick said nothing more. The core was expecting surrender, or panic, or some desperate plea for mercy. Instead, they got silence, and then a transmission. This is Commander Dax. We are not leaving Earth. If you want it, come take it. They came like hammers. The first wave was a surgical strike. Core tactical bombers swept low, aiming for ground-based defense hubs and communication relays. Earth's countermeasure systems kicked in, launching plasma bursts and kinetic missiles from mountaintop bunkers and ocean-based silos. Some hit. Most missed. This was what the Council had banked on, overwhelming Earth through attrition. They weren't here to negotiate, they were here to wipe away the stain, to remind the galaxy that humanity had only survived because the core had once allowed it. But they forgot what Earth really was. They forgot how humans fight when cornered. They forgot that dying on your feet beats living on your knees. The second wave hit heavier. Dax's fleet, positioned between Earth's orbit and the incoming core destroyers, met them in a blaze of calculated fury. The Reckoning led the charge, absorbing fire from 5 different angles as it barreled toward the enemy line. Inside, exiled pilots manned gunnery stations, sweating through heat surges and alarm sirens. They didn't care about living through the fight. They cared about hurting the bastards who said Earth didn't matter anymore. 3 enemy cruisers exploded within the first 2 minutes. The Ragnarok moved in, cloaked in interference fields and jamming drones. Dax ordered a full spread of magnetized flak into the enemy's path. When their ships tried to fire, their targeting scrambled. When they tried to retreat, they clipped their own allies. Confusion spread. That's when Dax struck hardest. He wasn't trying to defend Earth by shielding it. He was weaponizing Earth's chaos. On the ground, it was hell. Council shock troopers landed in packs, deploying on Earth's surface through orbital drop pods. Major cities like New Sydney, Neo-Johannesburg, and Cradle Point turned into war zones within minutes. But the Council didn't find soft civilians hiding in bunkers. They found neighborhoods turned into kill zones, apartments rigged with traps, subway systems turned into guerrilla tunnels, civilians wielding retrofitted plasma rifles and repulsor grenades built from scrap and stolen tech. They had nothing left to protect, but everything to fight for. In New Sydney, a 16-year-old boy led a charge that took out 2 armored walkers with home-rigged IEDs. In the icy wastelands of old Russia, ex-miners opened the vaults to ancient missile platforms, long sealed off by disarmament treaties. One of them had a message carved into the side. "You took our place. Now take our wrath." On Ragnarok, the battle became personal. A Council dreadnought called the Valorian Pike broke formation and charged toward Earth's upper atmosphere, its guns locked on the Bastion's uplink tower, the last planetary communications hub linking Earth's defense systems. Dax didn't hesitate. "Divert us. Ramming course." Merrick spun around. "That's suicide." Dax's voice was calm. "Only if we fail." Ragnarok's engines flared, punching through the debris of a fallen cruiser and accelerating toward the Valorian Pike at an angle no sane commander would dare attempt. The Council dreadnought tried to adjust. Too slow. Dax ordered his crew to prepare for emergency ejection, but he stayed. At the final moment, he locked eyes on the Pike's command deck through the forward monitor. He didn't blink. Then impact. The 2 ships collided in a burst of fire and molten steel. The Pike tore in half. The Ragnarok spun off, losing 2 decks and half its port side, but it held together. Barely. Dax emerged from the smoke and fire, bleeding from a gash above his eye, limping from the collapsing bridge. He was alive, and so was Earth's defense tower. But the cost was massive. By the 7th hour of the battle, Earth's orbit was littered with wreckage, dozens of Council ships destroyed, but at least 8 human cruisers were gone. Whole regions of Earth were dark, power grids fried, cities burned, infrastructure shredded. Merrick returned to the backup bridge, limping from a shrapnel wound. "We're still holding," he said, almost in disbelief. Dax, wrapped in a bloodied bandage, leaned over a cracked holo console. "How many enemy ships left?" "Less than 30. Dax looked up. "That's all." Merrick nodded. Dax smiled, just slightly. "Then it's over." The retreat wasn't public. The Council didn't issue a surrender, didn't send a peace envoy. They just backed off. Quietly. Their surviving ships disengaged from Earth's orbit and vanished into hyperspace, dragging their wounded pride behind them. It was a silent acknowledgement. They couldn't break Earth. Not with ships, not with numbers, not even with fire. The next day, the first independent comms pinged across the galactic network. The phrase was simple. One sentence. Earth still stands. And the galaxy heard it. From the mining worlds of the Dirax Belt to the floating cities of Valen Prime, humans, exiled, forgotten, hiding, stood taller. Alien governments once allied with the Council started pulling back, not out of loyalty to Earth, but out of fear. The humans weren't just survivors anymore. They were a power, not one to be governed, not one to be tamed, one to be reckoned with. 2 weeks after the battle, Dax stood on the old launch pad at Earth's southern base, staring at the skyline of a world scarred by victory. Beneath his feet was scorched soil. Behind him were the graves of the fallen. Beside him stood Merrick, a bandage over one eye, but standing proud. "Council will regroup," Merrick said quietly. "Let them," Dax answered. "Next time they won't be facing an Earth that begs for a seat. They'll be facing an Earth that builds its own damn table." He looked up at the sky. It was still broken, still blackened with smoke trails, but free. He turned to Merrick. "We did it." Merrick nodded. "And now?" Dax paused. "Now we make them listen again, not with war, but with legacy." The war was over, at least the one fought with guns and fleets. What came next was quieter, slower, and far more dangerous. Now the battlefield was diplomacy, economy, and perception. And in many ways, it was worse, because bullets either killed or missed. But lies? Lies lingered. Lies infected everything. And the biggest lie still echoing across the stars was this: humanity didn't belong. That's what Dax had to kill next. The first few weeks after the Battle of Earth were chaos: fractured comms, broken infrastructure, unburied dead. Thousands had died, and parts of the planet were still burning. But amid the destruction, something strange happened. The silence ended. Galactic channels that had once scrubbed human voices now opened back up. Messages from independent colonies poured in. Old Earth outposts thought lost. Distant fringe stations once severed by Council embargoes. Refugees, scavengers, veterans, scientists, all tuning back in, their signals finally reaching home. Humanity wasn't scattered anymore. It was awakening. Inside what was once a decommissioned orbital defense platform, now transformed into Earth's new command headquarters, Dax sat with his core council. The room was stripped bare, no symbols, no flags, just steel walls and hard voices. Merrick was there, arm still in a sling. Harvin, their code specialist, looked like he hadn't slept in days. And across from Dax sat the unexpected. An alien. A Tellurian diplomat, former council liaison. Her people had been among the first to defect from core influence after Earth's victory. Now she sat across the table, unarmed, eyes narrow. "I come not to apologize," she said plainly. "I come to recognize." Dax leaned forward. "Recognize what?" "That you exist, that you're a force, that Earth has returned to the galactic table, whether invited or not." Merrick scoffed. "Bit late, don't you think?" She didn't blink. "We tried to warn the Council, tried to tell them exile would make you unpredictable. It did more than that. It made you dangerous." Dax studied her face. "You're not here to make peace." "Number, I'm here to negotiate terms of survival." The room went quiet. Dax didn't smile. He just nodded slowly. "Good," he said. "Then let's talk about what comes next." What came next wasn't a warship. It was a conference. The first interstellar diplomatic summit since Earth's exile was now scheduled to take place not on a council world, but on neutral ground. A cold, isolated planet called Virel 9. Known for nothing. No native life, no resources. Just a long dead world with a functional atmosphere and the ruins of an old mining complex large enough to house the event. Dax didn't trust it. Marek didn't either. But the message was clear. The Council didn't want to face Earth directly. But they couldn't afford to pretend it didn't exist anymore. Not after losing 35 ships. Not after watching half the galaxy download Dax's flag-burning speech. Not after whole colonies began aligning with Earth's cause voluntarily. So they caved. Virel 9 became the stage. Dax arrived with no army, no fleet. Just Marek, Harvin, and 2 veteran guards from the Bastion Corps. He wore no medals, no dress uniform, just the same black combat jacket he'd worn since the siege of New Sydney. Every step he took onto the frozen soil of Virel 9 was met with stares, some hostile, some fearful, some curious, but no one dared stop him. The other delegates had arrived hours earlier, Juraxians, Curox, Talo, Dryly, even 3 silent observers from the enigmatic Varn. At the center of the ruined complex stood a tall, open-roofed structure turned into a makeshift meeting hall. No chairs, no hierarchy, everyone stood on the same level. Symbolism. Fake. Dax didn't need symbolism. He needed truth. The summit began with the expected speeches. The Juraxians spoke of unfortunate miscommunications and a tragic escalation of violence. The Curox offered nothing but their usual emotionless drivel. We regret structural instability. The Tellurians, to their credit, at least acknowledged the truth. You were erased, and we let it happen. But the room changed when Dax stepped forward. No podium, no translator. He spoke plainly, voice sharp and deliberate. "I'm not here to repair relationships," he began. "We're not asking for reintegration. We're not asking for forgiveness. We're not asking for a damn thing." Silence fell. He looked across the faces. Alien, cold, calculating. "We were cast out. Not because we failed, but because we scared you. Because we reminded you of everything you buried. Ambition, hunger, defiance. We're not savages. We're not unstable. We're human. And that means we never stop moving." He pointed toward the sky above the open roof. "You tried to silence us. Now you hear us every day." One of the Juraxians growled. "So what do you want, Dax?" "A seat?" Dax looked at him like one might look at a child. "We don't want a seat. We want control over our future, not your permission." The alien opened his mouth again, but Dax cut him off. "You want trade? We talk. You want peace? We talk. But Earth is no longer part of your hierarchy. We're our own system now, independent, respected or resisted." Another alien spoke up. "If every species took that stance, the galaxy would burn." Dax stepped closer. "Number the galaxy burns when only 5 species get to speak. We're just lighting a match to show how dark it's been." When he walked out of that hall, nothing had changed on paper. But everything had changed in the minds of those who heard him. He didn't ask for acceptance. He made acknowledgement inevitable. Back on Earth, the reaction was instant. News channels declared victory, not the military kind, but the existential kind. "Earth is no longer waiting for approval," one headline read. "It has declared itself undeniable." Colonies once reluctant began pledging allegiance to Earth's independent council. New trade routes opened, under Earth's terms. Even a few minor alien factions began back-channeling requests for deals outside of council oversight. The power shift had started. Dax didn't celebrate. He didn't believe in celebrations. Not until it was over. One night, Dax stood alone on the edge of the new Bastion overlook, high above what was left of Earth's southern valley. Fires had long gone out. The rebuilding had begun. Slow, painful, real. Marek joined him, quiet. They watched the stars for a while. Ships passed in the distance, human ships, not hiding anymore. "You know what they're saying now?" Merrick asked. "What?" "That we're the new threat. That humans aren't oppressed. We're dangerous." Dax gave a dry chuckle. "They're not wrong." Merrick didn't laugh. "What happens next?" Dax turned, staring at the sky. "They keep trying to contain us, and we keep showing them we don't fit in cages. The moment humanity stopped asking for inclusion, they became a threat. That's what Dax understood better than anyone. You don't scare the powerful by fighting back. You scare them by standing on your own, by surviving without their systems, their trade routes, their approval. And now that Earth had proven it could survive, could fight, could win, the galaxy started treating it like a virus. One that could spread. That fear wasn't just political anymore. It was personal. The first attempt wasn't a fleet. It was a message. Hidden inside a supply shipment bound for one of Earth's new trade allies, the message was buried deep in a comm chip's processor. Coded in an extinct language, it would have gone unnoticed by anyone but Harvin. He found it by accident. Inside the encrypted layers, just 6 words. Dax dies, humanity fractures. Proceed. When Harvin played it back in front of the War Council, the room fell silent. Marek stood, pacing. "So that's the game now? Assassination?" Harvin didn't look up. "Not the first attempt, just the first one we've caught early." Dax was calm. Too calm. "They can't kill a movement. They can't kill an idea." "They think they can kill you," Marek said sharply, "and let the movement die with you." Dax met his eyes. "Then we make damn sure it doesn't." The Bastion went into lockdown. Security doubled, ships rerouted. Dax was moved between decoy locations. Half the command team believed he should step back, disappear for a while, maybe lead from the shadows. He refused. "We lead from the front," he told them. "That's why they hate us." It wasn't ego. It was clarity. If he hid, Earth looked weak again, and that was unacceptable. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the war of stories continued. Council broadcasts flooded neutral systems, branding humans as instigators, terrorists, even species supremacists. They showed looped images of Earth's orbital bombardments, entire council cities burning in retaliation. What they didn't show were the slave worlds Earth had liberated, the core's brutal embargoes, the mass graves found in cleansed colonies. But the truth had already been set loose, and it was working. More alien colonies, fringe systems tired of the core's tax laws, cultural restrictions, and genetic regulations, began broadcasting in human dialect, flying Earth's black flag symbol, using Earth-sourced AI tech, even building Earth-style defense grids. These weren't allies, not yet. They were imitators. And to the core, that was worse than enemies. The Council tried their next move in Sector 12. A planet called Doral V, once a barren mining world, had declared itself under Earth's influence. They'd asked for protection, for trade, for identity. They weren't even human, just sick of being taxed into extinction. The Council deployed a fleet to restore order. It never landed. Dax sent 3 ships, only 3. But when they arrived, they activated a relic system deep within the crust of the planet, an Earth-coded gravity weapon. Something Dax's engineers had secretly planted over 2 years ago when the war began. It created a distortion field so dense, Council ships couldn't enter orbit. They were forced to retreat without firing a shot. No casualties, no warning, no mercy. The message was clear. You don't touch what Earth protects. By now, Dax's name was everywhere, not just on news feeds, not just in political briefings. It was spoken in prison cells, in military academies, whispered on black market trade routes. On Earth, Children who'd never seen a sky without flames grew up tracing the edges of his symbol into the dust. But with that power came risk. In the shadows, something darker moved. A new faction was forming. No flag, no face. Just whispers. They called themselves the Clean Order. And they weren't council loyalists or alien supremacists. They were former humans, ex-generals, corporations, high-born elites who'd thrived under the Corps' leash. Now they called Dax a danger to human unity. They wanted to rejoin the Corps. On their knees. The first public attack came on Earth itself. A drone strike in the new Boston district. No ships on radar, no warning. Just a high-yield plasma warhead dropped from near atmosphere that leveled 6 city blocks and killed over 400 civilians. The Council denied involvement. And for once, they were telling the truth. Because when Earth's intelligence division traced the signal, it came from inside a hidden array buried beneath the ruins of a former Earth defense contractor's station. An abandoned compound from before the exile. Inside, they found documents signed by former Earth Parliament officials. Traitors. Humans. Dax stood over the wreckage hours later. No cameras, no press. Just dust and flame and ash choking the air. A mother sat in the rubble, clutching something that looked like a child's boot. She wasn't crying. Just empty. Marek came up behind Dax. They're calling themselves patriots. Dax didn't turn. They don't even understand the word. They say you're too extreme, that you're isolating Earth. Dax finally looked up. His face was steel. They want the old Earth, the one that begged to be accepted. And now? They're scared of the Earth that doesn't give a damn what the galaxy thinks. Later that night, Dax made the hardest decision of the war so far. He authorized internal purges, not executions, not martial law, but exposure. Within days, Earth's intelligence network released terabytes of data, names, bank accounts, coordinates. Every human who had worked to undermine Earth's independence, publicly identified. No courts, no trials. Just raw truth, blasted into the net for every colony, every expat, every soldier to see. Some were arrested by Earth's new security command. Most were hunted by the people. No one defended them. Because in the new Earth, betrayal was the one crime no one forgave. Dax didn't celebrate. He didn't like what the war was making of them. But he knew the truth. You don't build peace with soft hands. Not when everyone around you still wants your throat. But what he didn't expect was what came next. An offer from the Varn. The most ancient species in the galaxy. They hadn't taken sides, hadn't joined the Council or Earth. They watched, measured, studied, until now. A Varn emissary arrived silently in Earth's orbit. The ship was unlike anything in recorded history. No engines, no visible tech. Just a floating black structure that shimmered like a living shadow. The message was short. You have shaken the stars. Let us speak. No other species had ever been invited. Not Juraxians, not Kuroks, not even the founders of the Corps. But Earth had been noticed. The Council debated it heavily. Harvin said it was a trap. Marek wasn't sure it mattered. We've already made enough enemies to last a century. But Dax, he already knew the answer. We speak, he said. Why? Marek asked. Because this war isn't about the Council anymore. He turned to the stars. It's about what comes after. The Varn didn't believe in time. They didn't believe in treaties, in borders, in alliances. They believed in continuity. For thousands of years, they'd watched from the edges of galactic chaos, intervening in nothing, guiding no one, speaking to no empire. Not once, not ever, not until Dax, not until Earth, the Varn ship didn't land. It hovered high above the upper mesosphere of Earth's northern pole, silent and pulsing like a slow heartbeat against the auroras. No doors, no landing gears, no visible entrances, just one single transmission, addressed not to the human government, not to the Earth Council, but directly to Dax. You understand consequence. You may now understand purpose. The words weren't spoken. They were felt, layered into every bone, every nerve. When Dax first heard it, his vision blurred. Not like pain, not like tech. Something older, something raw. The message was a weight in his mind, a gravity of its own. Marek begged him not to go. We just stabilized Earth. We finally have the colonies under control. If they kill you, then someone else takes my place, Dax interrupted. Not like you. There was never supposed to be a me, Marek. Just someone willing to say enough. He paused at the hangar doors. You built this with me. You'll keep it if I don't come back. Marek looked at him, jaw clenched, voice raw. I'll keep it, Dax, but it won't be the same. Dax gave a faint nod. That was the point. It wasn't supposed to be the same. It was supposed to evolve. He boarded a small shuttle alone. No guards, no weapons, no communications. Just him and the Varn signal beacon. When he approached their ship, it opened. Not like a hatch or a door, but like reality parting. The air shimmered, cracked, and folded into itself. A corridor of nothing stretched before him, both black and colorless at once. He walked, and they were waiting, not shaped like men, not shaped like anything. They shimmered in outlines, like the memory of beings who had once stood where gods now whispered. Dax didn't speak. He couldn't. Words didn't work here. They spoke in impressions, in moments, in truths, and what they showed him was everything. He saw Earth from above, suspended in the void, alone and unwanted. He saw the day the Council erased it from the star charts, the laughter behind closed doors, the smugness of power used to crush dissent. He saw the Council's hands as they rewrote history, deleting the contributions of human engineers, doctors, war heroes, removing human DNA from Federation research. He saw the lie built into law, but he also saw something more. He saw the streets of New Sydney burning and humans standing together, refusing to fall. He saw pirates shielding refugee convoys. He saw AI units once banned for emotional instability choosing to protect children over programmed protocol. He saw men like Marek holding the line against cruisers with nothing but an old rifle and spite. He saw legacy. And then the Varn spoke again. You have shaped what was never meant to rise. You changed the equation without touching the numbers. Dax's voice, at last, emerged. Why me? Not you, all of you, but you were the match. They offered him a glimpse into their own archives, futures not yet real, paths not yet walked. In one, Earth was conquered. In another, Earth rejoined the core under a new name, its culture sterilized. In one, humanity fractured, turned inward, and vanished into irrelevance. And then, the last one, the one Dax had unknowingly created, a future where Earth stood not at the top, but at the center, not as rulers but as influencers, as origin, where humans weren't feared because of their violence, but respected because they never stopped adapting, where every exile became an ambassador, where every war-forged colony became a haven for the broken, the cast out, the wild, where humanity became the blueprint for survival in a galaxy afraid of itself. Dax stepped back, breath stolen by what he saw. And then came the offer. Not power, not technology, but knowledge. The Varn handed him something without shape, a network of consciousness, a data seed, encoded not in binary, but in legacy. He didn't understand it fully, but he felt it. And then, they let him go. The shuttle returned 2 days later. No tracking, no signals, just Dax, standing silently as the hatch opened, staring at the planet he had dragged back from the edge. He didn't speak for 3 days. But when he did, everything changed. He stood before Earth's new council, scarred and tired, but clearer than ever. "We've done what no one thought possible," he began. "We took a broken people and made them a force the galaxy couldn't ignore. But if we stop now, if we settle, if we build walls, we become them." They listened. Every man and woman in that chamber knew what was coming next. This isn't about Earth anymore. This is about the exiled, the ignored, the suppressed. Humanity fought back because we had nothing. Now we fight forward, for everyone else who's still on their knees. He lifted the small Varn seed and placed it in Earth's central AI relay. The entire planet shifted. Energy grids realigned, old satellites reawakened, forgotten tech synced to life. Understanding poured into systems that had once relied on scrap code and guesswork. The gift wasn't a weapon. It was a spark. In the months that followed, everything accelerated. Earth's colonies expanded, not as invaders, but as liberators. Neutral species joined the network, asking not for protection, but for partnership. Trade routes reopened, but under Earth's regulation. Education networks bloomed across systems once too poor for light. The Council? They still existed, but smaller, quieter, no longer feared. Their stations stood, but their words didn't matter, because no one listened to the top anymore. They listened to the edge, to the people who'd been there, to Earth. Dax never gave another public speech. He refused every title. He turned down Earth's request to be declared first commander of the unified colonies. He walked away from politics entirely. Some say he died in the Bastion, quietly. Some say he vanished among the stars, looking for the next system that needed someone to light the match. Others claim he still sends transmissions from deep space, disguised as coded trade routes or old war songs. No one knows for sure. But his words remained, burned into the new constitution of Earth's interstellar accord. "We were meant to be quiet. We chose to be loud. Now the galaxy can't forget us, because we refuse to forget ourselves." And somewhere, in the black silence of space, the Varn watched. Not with fear, not with awe, but with something deeper, with hope. Because finally, after all these centuries, the species that was never meant to survive had become the one thing they never saw coming. A race not of domination, not of peace, but of proof. Proof that being cast out doesn't mean you disappear. Sometimes, it means you echo forever.